There is a persistent thought experiment in certain corners of the internet that asks a very strange question. What happens if a country simply begins to copy and paste itself? The prompt usually starts here, in the gridlock of Lagos. Nigeria's actual population density is the catalyst for the meme, which imagines the nation multiplying by 9 to create a single massive entity, Nigeria. This map shows the scale of the resulting landmass. By merging 9 versions of the country, Nigeria instantly becomes the most populous nation on Earth, occupying a footprint larger than the entire continent of Australia. In this scenario, the sheer internal pressure of that population causes the landmass to physically tear away from the African coast. It begins to drift, moving across the globe as an uncontained geographic force. This creates a physical problem that our current maps aren't designed to solve. When a landmass of this size begins to move, every international border it approaches becomes a potential collision point. We see the first major conflict in the Philippine Sea. As the megacontinent navigates these narrow waters, neighboring countries respond with immediate military force, lighting up the region with missile strikes. But its massive weight displaces enough water to threaten the ocean floor. This is a death sentence for low-lying nations like Palau. These islands sit so low in the water that they risk being completely submerged by the massive swell generated by Nigeria's arrival. The continent continues its path past India and into the Indian Ocean. This introduces a new, massive coastline to some of the world's busiest shipping lanes, creating a sudden, unpoliceable corridor for regional piracy. A minor drift of only a few miles would be enough to destroy the Maldives. The island's urban infrastructure is built directly at the water's edge, leaving no room for the physical impact of a passing continent. For these smaller nations, national security is no longer a matter of policy or diplomacy. They are simply physically incapable of occupying the same space as a migrating demographic giant. Eventually, the trajectory shifts toward the Americas. Nigeria begins a slow migration across the Pacific, driven by the narrative of the American dream. Historically, the standard geopolitical response to large-scale migration is the construction of physical barriers. The United States and its neighbors rely on border walls to control the movement of people. However, a wall is a static solution for an individual problem. When the migrating entity is a literal continent, the entire concept of a border fence becomes a geographic absurdity. The sheer scale of the new continent turns the Pacific into a cul-de-sac. Global maritime trade routes are effectively severed, as there is no longer enough open water for ships to pass between Asia and the Americas. This blockade proves that our physical infrastructure is designed for a world where geography stays put. When the ground itself begins to move, these walls offer no protection against the resulting structural shifts. Now, Nigeria makes its final push toward Europe, seeking to integrate into the world's most rigid geopolitical system. At the doorstep of the European Union, the anomaly attempts one last evolution, Tangeria. It tries to multiply again, to bypass the continent's strict entry requirements through sheer, overwhelming scale. But the rules of this fictional universe have a limit. In the internet lore of Poland Ball, multiplying your landmass is a violation of the fundamental code, and the system is programmed to retaliate. Europe invokes the ultimate penalty, the shower. The systemic evolution is forcibly reversed, and the megacontinent begins to rapidly disintegrate. The rule-breaking fails. The massive landmass collapses and shrinks back down to the familiar single borders of Nigeria, ending the migration. While the Nigeria anomaly is a work of fiction, the tension it creates is real. It shows that our global maps are drawn in ink that cannot stretch, while the movement of human demographics is a physical force that our rigid systems were never built to contain.